In the medieval world, hygiene was a concept far removed from what we know today, and if you close your eyes and imagine a time of castles, cobblestone streets, candlelit halls, and knights in shining armor, you might also imagine the scent of unwashed tunics and muddy boots filling the air. Back in those times, people didn't bathe daily or even weekly as we do now. In fact, many people believed that bathing in water could make them ill. While public bathhouses were common in the earlier Middle Ages, often places of both cleanliness and community gathering, over time their popularity waned, especially as diseases became more mysterious and misunderstood. Water, once seen as purifying, was now viewed by some as a carrier of sickness, so people began to avoid full-body bathing altogether. Nobles might bathe once a month, if at all, and peasants typically resorted to washing their hands and faces with cold water from a bucket, only when it was convenient. Cleanliness, instead of being about washing the body, became more about changing clothes, especially undergarments made from linen, which were believed to absorb sweat and dirt from the skin. By simply changing and airing out their linens, people thought they were effectively keeping themselves clean. It wasn't unusual for people to go months without a true bath, and yet they still managed to live full lives, build towns, raise families, and even write poetry, all while remaining, let's say, somewhat fragrant. Soap did exist in those times, but it was nothing like the pleasantly scented bars and body washes we use today. Medieval soap was usually made from animal fat and lyeine, abrasive and caustic substance derived from ashes. This mixture created a soap that was hard on the skin and much more useful for laundry than for delicate bathing. Even so, some people did use it on their bodies, although it often left skin dry and irritated. To smell better, people turned to herbs like rosemary, lavender, or mint, which they would crush and stuff into pockets, wrap in small cloth pouches, or sew into their garments. These herbal remedies didn't exactly clean the skin, but they did help mask the more pungent aromas of medieval life. If someone smelled like a field of lavender, they were probably doing better than most. When it came to teeth, there was no toothpaste or toothbrush in the modern sense. Instead, people might chew on twigs, rub ashes, or salt into their teeth with a piece of cloth, or simply rinse with wine or vinegar. Oral hygiene wasn't advanced, but people still valued fresh breath, especially among the upper classes who attended court and banquets. Now, speaking of other hygiene matters, let's discuss the toilets, or rather, the lack thereof. In castles, the toilet was known as the garderobe. This was often a small, chilly room with a stone or wooden bench that had a hole in it, and beneath that hole, well, nothing particularly pleasant. Waste would fall straight down into a pit, or, in some unfortunate cases, directly into the moat. In towns and cities, people used chamber pots inside their homes. These pots were emptied outside, sometimes directly onto the street after the household would call out "Gardez-l'eau," likely derived from the French "Regardez l'eau," meaning watch out for the water. So imagine walking through a busy medieval street, trying to avoid puddles of questionable origin. Eventually, towns started regulating this waste disposal more strictly, but for a while, stepping outside was a bit of a gamble. Still, people managed. During times of plague, especially the infamous Black Death in the 14th century, hygiene became a central concern, though it was approached through misunderstanding. People didn't know about germs, but they believed that foul smells and bad air, or miasma, were what caused disease. To protect themselves, they burned incense, carried posies of flowers, or wore amulets filled with fragrant herbs. Doctors famously wore long cloaks and bird-like masks filled with aromatic substances, hoping the scent would ward off illness. It didn't work, but it was a creative attempt. Barbers played an unexpected role in hygiene and health as well. In addition to cutting hair, barbers acted as surgeons, dentists, and general medical practitioners for minor issues. They would pull teeth, bleed patients to balance their humours, and sometimes even perform surgeries. The classic red and white barber pole comes from this array: the red, symbolising blood, and the white, symbolising bandages. It was a brutal but practical system, especially when professional doctors were few and far between. And speaking of practicality, people had some clever methods for staying somewhat fresh. For example, they might sprinkle rose water on their clothes, hang herbs above doorways to purify the air, or walk with scented handkerchiefs near their noses in crowded spaces. Communal bath days were sometimes held in castles or monasteries, where tubs were filled with warm water, and everyone took turns soaking, though usually in the same water. Naturally, the noble lord went first, followed by the lady, and eventually the servants, by which point the water was far from clean. Yet these rituals still brought comfort and a sense of renewal to those who participated. As nighttime fell over the countryside and flickering candles glowed in windows, people would wrap themselves in woolen cloaks, lay on straw mattresses, often shared by several family members, and drift to sleep. Even if they hadn't bathed in weeks, the scent of herbs in the air, the quiet crackle of a hearth, and the gentle lull of distant bells would have created an atmosphere not unlike the coziness we seek today. It's remarkable to think that without modern plumbing, deodorant, or even basic soap, people still manage to build entire societies, form deep relationships, and express their humanity in poetry, art, and architecture. Though the Middle Ages may have been filled with challenges we can barely imagine, especially when it comes to hygiene, something oddly comforting in knowing that despite all of that, people found joy, laughter, and love. And now, as you lie warm in your clean sheets, freshly bathed and comfortable, think of how far we've come and how different life once was. Let the past drift quietly into your dreams, where the echoes of history are soft and sleepy, and the world smells just a little sweeter than it did 1,000 years ago.